Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me.
I'd like to call the work session of the Isabella County Board of Commissioners to order. Stand for the pledge, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk Clucks, a roll call, please.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Here.
Commissioner Engler, Commissioner Jagodzinski, Commissioner Horton, Commissioner Marino,
Here.
Commissioner Swaney,
Here.
Commissioner Hope.
Here.
All present, Mr. Chairman, except for Commissioner Jagodzinski and Commissioner Horton.
Thank you. And those two commissioners, Jagodzinski and Horton, did let me know that they couldn't be here. They had some extenuating circumstances and could not join us tonight. So we'll carry on as best we can. But next up would be approval of the agenda. We'll start out with general public comments. We'll have a report from our administrator controller. We have one appointment to make for the Human Rights Committee, which brings us down to committee reports. The Finance and Administration Committee members are not present, but that work will be handled by Criminal Justice and County Affairs and Human Resources and Public Works. So that brings us down to Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Justice, the County Affairs Committee is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Human Resources and Public Works.
Human Resources and Public Works is all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Intergovernmental Affairs, Commissioner Marino, do we have any intergovernmental affairs? We do not. We have no administrator controller issues. No unfinished business. Under new business, we will consider approving the Isabella County fiscal year 2023 budget resolution and general appropriations act. And then also under new business, we have 5 Saginaw Chippewa Indian Tribe 2% grant requests to consider. And then there will be another opportunity for general public comment, announcements, and then after announcements, we will go into closed session to consider entering to discuss collective bargaining agreement strategy. So is there a motion to approve the agenda? So moved.
Marino.
Support. Been moved and supported. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. We have an agenda. And that brings us to general public comment. Anyone for general public comment? Michelle, do we have anyone online? Okay. All right, very good. We will keep moving along to presentations and special reports. Administrator Controller Frost.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So just a few things I wanted to update the board on that's been going on and what's coming up next. If you hadn't heard, yesterday we had a fire drill at the county building and the trial court building, and was a phenomenal success. I think it sounds like I heard different reports that had been either 15 or 18 years since we had done one. So it was time. I'd heard that last time it took 22 minutes to get us out of the building. This time it took 6 to clear both buildings, and in 10 to 11 minutes, we had everyone accounted for. So phenomenal success. I cannot thank Mark Griffiths, our emergency management director and 911 director, enough. He was helped tremendously by a whole slew of people, and I know I'm gonna forget someone, but Central Dispatch was right there behind you. You had dispatchers and dispatch supervisors helping. Of course, Sheriff's Office had detective sergeants there, you had undersheriff there. They were supported by facilities, they were supported by IT, they were supported by admin, they were supported by Commission on Aging and Community Development, because we had a nice picnic lunch down at Island Park where we gathered. Mount Pleasant Police, Mount Pleasant Fire, CMU Public Safety, our CERT team, Community Emergency Response Team members were there helping. I just can't say enough about the event, and just a big thank you to everybody involved. Everybody took it seriously, except our UPS driver, who we really messed up his day. But other than that, I think everybody took it very seriously. They did their part. We learned a lot. We're improving on a lot, and just a big thank you to everybody. So that took place yesterday, after a lot of planning on Mark's part. So roof replacement is done. I don't know if Steve Shoemaker, if you would want to hear from him a report on that or see pictures eventually. I think would be a good idea, even if you put something together in an email and sent it out to commissioners, it'd be a good idea. That project is wrapped up, and if Commissioner Jelezinski was here, he would remind me that the HVAC part of that roof and HVAC project is left undone. And we do need to address that, right? We are going to remain in that building as a backup, if you will. We've always planned to save enough ARPA dollars back to pay for that, but we'll have to consider how we moving forward. Are we going to do another? We'll have to do another RFP at this point, but we just need to think about what needs to be done. What are we going to bid out? Opioid settlement monies are forthcoming. We've been working with the accountants in the treasurer's office to set up line items, to set up bank accounts, to be in receipt of this. I wanted to specifically talk to the commissioners about this because last board action in regards to opioids took place at the November 16th, 2021 Board of Commissioners meeting. It's my mom's birthday. The board action was to make administrator controller the authorized representative for opioid litigation. But when we started to get information about the payments forthcoming, they were sent to Commissioner Horton, presumably because in 2021 he was chairman at the time, and that was how it was set up. But the action of this board was to name the administrator controller, the authorized representative, the authorized official to go forward with the opioid stuff. So basically we acted to support that board action. And I've been registering as the authorized official, authorized representative, and getting that paperwork accomplished, and not without Jessica's help, that's for sure. So just wanted to make sure that was okay with you. If this board wants to change that and make chairman, vice chairman, chairman of finance, whatever you want. Right now it's me, and I just wanted to be upfront that's how we were going forward. So if that needs to change, you let me know. Some important things on the agenda tonight. Obviously, the fiscal 23 budget is up for adoption. And I just want to thank everybody about that process. I think that it's been a very open and responsive process. I think we've allowed ample time if there's been comments for feedback. So thank you for supporting that process. I think it's going very well. Insurance committee makeup is going to be on the agenda under Human Resources Committee, and we'll be hearing a little bit from Miss Emma Nieport, Payroll and Benefits Administrator. In that regard, we'll be having a little discussion later about the makeup of that committee, and Emma's been working really hard on that. Jessica set the commissioners up with Michigan Townships Association If you're not familiar with that organization, they put out a lot of resources. They do a Friday email like MAC does, although quite often it's got quite a bit more information. You have to be careful because it is geared, of course, towards townships. So just remember that when you're reading through, but Jessica has set you up with them to where you should have recently received maybe a welcome email from them to go ahead and set up your own account so you can start accessing those resources. So just wanted to let you know about that.
Can I just say that because there's something like 1,500 townships, they have a lot of money and they're very helpful even to people that are like, I don't have any townships in my district, but
Sure.
a lot
Yeah.
of, lot of pull and a lot of influence in Lansing too. So it's a good
Yes.
resource for everybody, I'd say, in here.
Yes, and their legislative liaison does a great job, I think, of getting those words out of things that affect all governments too, right? Maybe not just townships. So just be mindful about that as you're reading it, but agreed, you've got a enthusiastic township supporter behind you saying yes, supporting MTA. I want to let you know that working with the accountants on GASB 87. So GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and every so often they send out new rules about how things should roll in our audit. Melissa Franquist, one of our accountants, has sent out an email requesting information regarding GASB 87. It's all about leases, and we have to have this information ready and prepared for the fiscal 22 audit of our financial statements. So just letting you know that you might hear more about that coming forward. The department heads and electeds are doing good to get those around and forward those to us. I don't want to steal your thunder, but Chairman Hope and I did attend the second annual Recovery Month celebration by invite of I believe of Judge Spencer Nagel, and what a fantastic event that was. We got to see a graduation that day as well, and so I appreciate the invite. Jen Crawford also recently invited me to the Foster Grandparent Senior Companion Recognition event. I was not able to attend. I'm so sorry, but I so appreciate you appreciating them. So please keep inviting all of us to those good things. Just excuse me, just a little bit about what's forthcoming. I'm excited about a couple partnerships with CMU. Just last Friday, we had a CMU intern start in administration. She's doing fantastically for us. And then also last Friday, I met with Dan Gakin from the Leadership Institute to see how the county can maybe start to participate in Leadership Safari at CMU, where they bring the freshmen in 4 days early and interject them into the community and give them a big jump start on their freshman year. So they're planning now for next year. I found out through that meeting, our sheriff's department already takes part in that, as does our Parks and Recreation, but looking maybe to get more county departments involved in that, maybe the commissioners. It's a good opportunity when the highest elected official in the county is a CMU employee. I think it would be ripe maybe for some partnership. So that's all I have, unless there's questions for me.
It's good information. Just one question. Can you remind us on that opiate settlement, how much money we're getting?
I believe it to be about 101,000 a year. It's about 1.9 million over 18 years, I believe.
Any other questions for Administrator Frost? Okay, seeing none. Great job. We'll move on to appointments to boards and commissions. Or A under that is consider appointing one member to the Isabella County Human Rights Committee as an at-large representative for a 3-year term ending September 1st, 2025, or until a successor is appointed. And that person is Erica Hopcraft, who is an incumbent, so she's on the committee now. Do you work with her, Commissioner Swain?
Since 2020.
Okay.
A very active individual with the HRC group. Good to see her reapply and get back on.
Great. so we'll consider that tonight, and that brings us down to committee reports. Finance and administration, as I said, will be handled by criminal justice and county affairs and human resources and public works. So.
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I'll start off with consider ratifying and placing on file the September 2nd, 2022 invoice list in the amount of $542,560.43. The September 9th, 2022 invoice list in the amount of $176,781.83. And the adjustment list dated September 15th, 2022. I will, I guess, as Vice Chairman Horton always says, that we receive all these informations ahead of time. We go through them. I was not at the finance committee, so I will confer to the chairman on this if there are any. I do have one question though on the September 9th, and when we get to that, I will ask it. So.
Okay. Yeah, we had a very brief discussion on these in committee. None of us saw anything really out of the ordinary. There is on the September 2nd, there's 2 payments to hats. And that was just it's a timing issue that those 2 payments both ended up on the same invoice list. And then the adjustment list, mostly prepayment to avoid penalties on various things. So.
Yeah, on the September 9th one on there, it's more of a process question. But there was 2 payments to the McBride, and that's goes to the child care fund. Now, is that part, I know last year the state changed it. How is that reimbursement? Is that part of the 50/50 reimbursement that we get? How does that work? Is that in a fund they send it? Can you walk me through that process of how we actually get that money? Or I'm confused a little bit.
These are the 2 payments that have the same description. I think. No, they aren't.
I'm just curious, is the state supposed to pay it first and then we're supposed to reimburse the state? I'm just wondering how it works. Or
They both say August Secure Services.
Yeah.
8 youths.
I did look up the invoices to see, why was the description the same on both? And the services were different. They're not the same 8 youth. One was like a intensive, very expensive per day. Another was less intensive, a lot more days. I think, but that's a great question, because this is definitely, you know what, I'm talking Carrie's on. I don't know if she was on for this part. Carrie, I see court administrator on the Zoom, and I just wondered if she could.
I mean, it doesn't have to be answered right now, but
Muting, so she.
okay.
I am here, but unfortunately, I'm sorry, I did not hear the question.
So Commissioner Engler is asking, we've got a couple of McBride quality care invoices on our invoice list. And with the recent change where we used to pay and then the state would reimburse us 50%, now the state's paying first. How does that work when we're paying a McBride bill?
So this, I'm sorry, Nicole, the state only pays first when it's youth that are under state wardship. So these costs, I assume, to McBride, they would be our contractual costs to operate day treatment and non-secure. So we pay the 100% of those, and then they are reimbursed to us at 50%.
Okay, thank you. That answers my question.
Good.
So
Thank you, Carrie.
is there any more questions on that item? We'll move this forward to the business session tonight.
All right, item number 2, consider approving the BSB Communications Incorporated installment agreement for phone systems in the county administrative building, the trial court building, the sheriff's office, and 911 central dispatch in the total amount of $100,074,919 $919.44. Authorize the board chair to sign the same. Are we gonna have a full crew in front of the microphone today, or just
Carrie on,
a representative here?
hello, everybody. You do have Carrie online here, and you have Mark and the sheriff. We all became a nice phone committee. Our systems needed, and then you have Chris Atherson from BSB, if you have any real questions that I can't answer, but he's here for support and to answer anything that might come up. But the county has needed this new phone system for 25 years. We've had our old ones. We've needed it for quite a few years. And this project started out with just the county and trial court because we share the same system. Well, then it became known that the sheriff and Mark could not, their systems are not being supported anymore by Frontier. So they became part of this project as well. And we went out for bids, and we had demonstrations. We got 8 bids back, and out of that, we had 7 demonstrations. One bid came back unresponsive because they didn't fill in everything, but we all did agree on the one that we are presenting to you, BSB Communications. It was a wonderful system, nice phones. It felt right. And they got their stuff that they needed and wanted. So everybody I think is going to be very, very happy with this project. Any questions?
Any questions, commissioners?
Just to comment, but I know we've been talking about wanting to do that for a couple of years now. And like you say, we've had those phones for 25 years, so I think we got our money's worth out of the old system.
We certainly did. We've kept it going.
Will they be covering conference phones as well? Then I saw that pictures of them. But I guess the question is conference phones for meetings, or is those just conference phones for office work?
Well, each phone is a conference phone, but there are conference phones that we can buy for meeting rooms. We didn't do it for the county at this time because we're going to be looking at that in a different project and would work with the vendor at that time to what best fits our needs. So we didn't put any in, but Mark put in his 3 big ones that tie together for his different trainings and such. So, and the sheriff, we've got little speakers though that can extenuate the phone to accommodate, and they're for mics as well. So we did look at the bare minimum for right now for the county and trial court, but those are what everybody got, what they wanted and asked for. We put it out there, and everybody fit within their budget. So I think everybody, Sheriff, do you want to? Everybody's happy.
Court Administrator Carrie Curtis, are you happy?
I'm very pleased. I appreciate Isabella County's confidence in BSB and the system we propose. So we're looking forward to moving the county forward with the new phone system.
Yes, we are very happy to.
Excellent. Any further questions?
Will the system be able to move with the sheriff to his new facility?
Yes, indicated in my report, the sheriff, we made sure that his piece of it would also go to his new building and he'd be fully functional with it. And there's redundancy built in. If one area goes down, the others will pick up and allow phone to continue in for all of us. So.
Excellent. Well, it's nice to see this RFP system working, getting quite a few bids that we can piece through to pick the best one here.
Nice.
Seeing that, we'll move this forward to the work session. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is consider approving the addendum to the contract for professional services between Preston Community Services LLC and Isabella County in the annual amount of $53,400, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. And I think we have Pete Preston here from Preston's Community Services. And as you know, that position there's been a position open for quite a long time and it kind of put the county a little bit behind and apparently we had somebody hired and now we don't. So and Pete has been working to get everything caught up. So the proposal is what's presented. So Mr. Chairman, do you have anything to add before Mr. Preston takes over?
No, I'll let Mr. Preston run with it.
Thank you.
Whoops, just
Sorry.
excuse me.
At the time of committee, it had not been through legal yet, and it has now been through legal, and they have no objection to that.
Great.
Yes, there's been an issue with the staffing in the equalization department, essentially over the last year. We did have a person in and we're moving forward. And then at that point, we didn't have a person. So what we're proposing now under this addendum is for my company to provide that staff person. It wouldn't necessarily be one staff person. What we're doing is changing some of our business model and the way that we provide services to local government, and that we're making sure that we cross-train multiple individuals because each county, each community is different. That also gives us the flexibility that if one of our staff members is sick or on vacation, then another staff person can be infilling. So we currently have 3 people in the process of training. I am looking for an additional 2 people to cover the communities that we're doing. So in the next 2 to 4 weeks, we should adequately be able to cover the equalization department here, pretty much full-time position.
Is there any questions?
I'll just add that this also saves us money compared to the county filling that position as opposed to having Preston Community Services do it. So saves us a little bit of money. So
It's an interesting job market out there, folks. You know, I used to think that a full-time job with benefits, you just get droves of people. We have a lot of individuals, especially those that are coming into careers that are looking to work 24 or 32 hours a week. So it's we're changing to meet their needs because we need them in a seat some portion of the week. So.
Okay, is there more questions for Mr. Preston? Seeing none, we'll move this forward to tonight's business session.
Thank you.
You.
All right, item number 4. Consider approving the completion of the State Tax Commission Form L4029-2022 tax rate request, affirming each county approved millage rate, and authorize the board chair and the county clerk to sign the same. Go ahead.
Took a little
Yep.
dramatic pause. Sorry.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that was on there. The 4029 is the equalization department. Judy Niznak prepares for you. And what it is your codification of the millage levy for this upcoming winter tax bill, which is we'll start preparing after the November PREs are due on November 1st, and then trying to get those out by the guideline requirement of December 2nd. So this is your establishment of millage for the winter taxes.
Get
Very
those
good.
winter taxes. Are there any questions for? Nope, hearing none, we'll move it forward to the work session tonight.
I'm gonna now get up.
thank you.
Okay. The next item is item 5, consider adopting Isabella County Board of Commissioners Resolution number 2022-06 by a 2/3 vote of the Board of Commissioners to exempt Isabella County from the requirements of Public Act 152 for calendar benefit year of 2023 and authorize the board chair to sign the same. This is a lot better than last time.
Absolutely. So, most of you, I'm sure, will remember the position we found ourselves in last year where we had discovered that we had not opted out of PA 152 like we had in the previous, however many years, since 2012 or so, when PA 152 took effect. So units of government are able to opt out. We always had, somehow it got missed last year. And that was unfortunate, but I don't think that'll happen again. So,
Just, Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I knew I heard a little bit of the conversation, but 5 is considered 2/3. Okay.
Uh-huh.
Board's not enough. If one more of you was absent, we couldn't pass this tonight.
I don't know if you round up or down on the 5, but okay. Just to make sure that was checked before we passed it. So
we had that discussion in committee
in
and
committee, okay.
Okay, then that will be on this afternoon's.
Okay, next item, consider adopting Isabella County Financial Management Policy Number 416, petty cash policy, and take effective immediately upon adoption. This is a policy that we want to put in place in case we get. Most businesses have a petty cash policy in place. It's not a lot of money that you're concerned with, but it's accounting for that.
it kind of maintains and codifies what we're already doing. But it's always good to have stuff in writing. It was noted on the fiscal year 21 audit. We didn't have a petty cash policy. So not a big deal, just a note on an audit, but something we like to take care of. And Administrator Frost, I don't know if you want to add anything to that or.
I would just say that it did come from our auditors, a request to have this, and we Melissa Franquist, accountant Melissa Franquist, surveyed the departments to see what was happening with petty cash, so that like the thresholds that we chose wouldn't limit what they're doing right now, right? And so this policy shouldn't be burdensome to anyone. There is a reconciliation process that we'd like to see happen with petty cash that comes again from a recommendation from our auditor. So this is, as Chairman said, just basically formalizing what our best practice will be for petty cash. And the log is attached this time to the policy where we kind of missed that in committee. So we did talk about a couple of changes in committee. Commissioner Horton specifically had some clarifying language, and you'll find that in red in the attached policy. We added that petty cash should not be used for recurring expenses, right? If you've got something going on monthly, or that should never be a petty cash thing. We also added, as part of the established accounts payable process, any request for replenishment of petty cash funds must be documented by receipt and must only be for allowable expenses. That's common practice for us. We always make sure things are allowable in our AP process, but we didn't state that in the policy. I think it's what we do. We presume that, but I think it was worth restating. So we did add those improvements to the policy after committee feedback.
Very good. Just one question. Is there a limit on how many times they can?
No,
I mean, I don't see it happening.
correct. Yes. No limit. We do want to make sure that they're replenishing to the full at least once a year by fiscal year end. But if someone is, I think if someone was maybe weekly coming for replenishments or small amounts, we would probably look for a different process to handle maybe what they're doing but no limit. Thank you.
Okay, the next item is consider approving fiscal year 2022 budget amendment number 2022-11. The fourth quarter budget adjustments for general fund, and authorize the board chair to sign the same.
You want me to walk through these
Yeah,
like we
would you
did
please?
in finance? Absolutely. So we'll start with of course, these are the general fund budget adjustments for fourth quarter. We are normally, we don't necessarily put this amount of fund balance in there, what the actual outcome is going to be, but we thought it was important. So right at the top, you're going to see that overall, This budget amendment serves to add almost $600,000 back into the fund balance, right? It's to the good. So we're increasing general fund balance almost $600,000 by this budget amendment. So it's overall good news. But I'll walk through, please let me know if you have questions as I'm walking through this. We will, up at the top are the revenues, in that block down below are expenditures. So we'll start with revenues. We are getting in some more of the CESF, that's the coronavirus emergency supplemental funds from 21 in the prosecuting attorney's office. That grant is continuing to pay for staff. So we're increasing revenues by almost $17,000. And down below, about the 5th or 6th line down, you'll see a corresponding expense, right? For the PA wages and salaries for the CESF grant. So that kind of offsets. It's a net zero, but it's raising up revenues and raising up expenditures. So that's a function of this board. The next revenue line you see is actually going down. We're decreasing the use of ARPA dollars used in the budget by $520,000. This is because we're not doing that HVAC project in the county building. Remember, we had budgeted $520,000 of ARPA dollars and then found out it was more like a $2 million project. We pulled it off the book, so we will take that revenue out of the budget because we know we're not going to use it. I'll talk about the corresponding expense when we get down below. Other federal grant revenue, ARPA, that decrease of almost 49,000 of revenue of ARPA, that was for the special deputy to sit security at the county building. And that deputy, you may have seen a note from sheriff, has been reassigned and is now a school resource officer. So a higher calling there. We will not be using ARPA dollars for that position. It's no longer there as a security position. That's just removed. The next ARPA revenue we're increasing by just over 31,000. And the ARPA work group that got together to look at all of the projects that were submitted. One of the projects submitted was for unreimbursed COVID expenses. Remember, in our budget, we don't budget for COVID because when COVID money comes along, you shouldn't have budgeted for it, or maybe that money might not be available, right? So we put these things to line items. They've been to this point unreimbursed. So this would be covering just over 31,000 of general fund unreimbursed COVID expenses. That was a recommendation of the work group to spend ARPA dollars for approximately $30,000 of COVID expenses. And we also said not just general fund, but other funds. So this next budget amendment that we look through is going to have a little bit of unreimbursed COVID there as well. As we walk through the expenditures, I'll point those out, but they're coded really well. These are from a lot of different offices: clerk, admin, PA's office, sheriff, trial court was a big one. The next ARPA revenue of 6,915, that's an increase. That was a recommendation that came from your ARPA work group committee to cover the dual factor authentication that information systems needs to install. So all good things happening here. Local revenue HATS is increasing by about $28,000. When we brought that request to the board for HATS to share in the cost of the new parking lot at the animal control, we increased the budget for our half of the expense, but we didn't account for their revenue or their half of the expense. So you'll see down below corresponding increase in expenditures in animal control department for almost 28,000. So again, it nets out, but that's increasing our revenues, increasing our expenditures. So that's something that this board has to do. Insurance settlement of 22,000. Thank you so much, Sheriff. We've got new revenue. We totaled another car. The good news is that we had the green light, so we do get the payout. So that is, we didn't expect that revenue. Down below, you'll see 22,000 increase in expense in the sheriff's department. Boy, you were responsible for the revenue, Sheriff, so you should get those expenditures, but Sheriff's doing great things, with that money, putting vests on our corrections officers, not only for safety, but just for practical purposes of holding all the equipment they have to hold, and also about around $5,000 for new scheduling software for the sheriff's office. So that's going all to good things. Here's a big eye opener. The next revenue increase, property taxes of 1.69 million. And that is from budget. That's what's budgeted. It's not like we've got 1.6 million of new money. But we were very conservative. Remember, we're sitting in year one, 100% of those turbine revenues. And at budget time, we weren't sure what year one was going to get us. So we were extremely conservative in the budget. And so this is for budget. We do believe this money is going to be coming in and mostly attributed to turbines. In current year, Melissa helped me about 2.3 million, our pinnacle of turbine revenue for the county operating. Local community stabilization, PPT, that stands for personal property tax. This just over 23,000 is revenue from the state. When they changed the personal property structure a few years ago, they promised to share in some new use tax revenue, and this is our share. L8 Homeland Security Region 6 grant, Gray Key. This is software. We're fiduciary on this. You'll see a corresponding expense of that $4,000 below. Again, it's a net zero. This next one is revenue coming in of $5,000 for the state medical marijuana grant. You'll see a similar $5,000 expense below. Again, it nets out. Remember, we gave out the medication lock boxes with that 120 that we sent out the door. So that was a fantastic program. Federal inmate housing, we're increasing by almost $45,000. Sheriff has been performing really well in that revenue line item. I think we were conservative in that. If you remember, we've already come to you once and increased that this year. This is already revenue in our coffers, if you will. We're not projecting, we are projecting to get more, but we're not going beyond what's already in hand, if you will. Revenue for the wind special use permit and site plan review. I believe this is actually for the post-construction sound study that is continuing, and that $100,000 increase you'll see down below has a corresponding $100,000 expense at the bottom of the page. The last revenue up there, we're actually decreasing $800,000. We are not taking a transfer in from delinquent tax revolving fund. I said over and over, I don't, my intention is never to take from that fund to add from our fund balance. We don't need that transfer in the budget. Take it out in the budget amendment. So that tells the story in the revenues. Down below, Board of Commissioners, your dues and subscriptions, we just missed the mark budgeting on that, and we need to add in another 5,300. We believe we missed that we do pay dues to the Township Association, to MTA. Very valuable organization. We want to continue that, but we need to budget funds to do so. A few of these next expenses, these are those unreimbursed COVID expenses, COVID-19 ARPA grant you see. So you'll see some for trial court, admin, clerk. These next two line items, just you see how they net out 101,111. That's for in the prosecuting attorney's office. We just had budgeted monies for that senior prosecuting attorney. This board had approved using ARPA dollars to pay for that position. You can see we're just moving it from regular wages into ARPA funded wages just to get it in the right account. That's a net zero, but it's over $50,000. So it's a function of this board for your budget resolution. More COVID-19 expenses. Information systems, new equipment. We are building in we're reallocating 156,000 that was budgeted in IT's new equipment. This was 100,000 for the phone system for the county building and trial court. Also the server, which I think was around 30,000 maybe, or in the email exchange. So that's everything budgeted in there, just moving it to an ARPA line item. As those things were actually approved by this board in the fiscal 22 budget to use ARPA for. Big reduction of expenses and facilities. We would expect, excuse me, to see a $520,000 decrease here because of not doing the HVAC project. But if you remember, Facilities Director Shoemaker came to you to say, these lighting projects we were going to do in 23, we're going to try to get them done in 22. So we wanted to save some money in the 22 budget in case those came to fruition, and of course, a couple of parking lot projects. I think we're going to see him back before you to do a budget amendment to bring those back in fiscal 23. But we really appreciate you trying to get those done early. No fault of Director Shoemaker for sure. So we decided to leave some money on the table, if you will. So we only decreased those expenses by $435,000. Some more COVID expenses in the sheriff's department. You'll see we are, he's needing some money to cover overtime in sheriff's department. We're talking road deputies. This is about $40,000 over budget, and we did look at that through the end of the fiscal year, but we're taking 40,000 from regular wages and sheriffs to cover it. You hear him say he's understaffed. There's a little wiggle room in wages to be able to do that. Big news, Eric, oil and gas is getting another 15,000 in the sheriff's department. This is important. We're just projecting that out to the end of the year. Phone system for sheriff. Now, Michelle is right. You know, we came into budget for the county building and court building. Remember, sheriff's office and 911. Frontier said we're stepping away. Those gentlemen didn't have time to budget for their need for the phone system. So this is building 30,000 in for the sheriff's phone system. We'll get to emergency management later on in here. We've talked about the 4,000 for new equipment. That's from the Region 6. We talked about the 5,000 for marijuana grant expenditures. We'll talk about sheriffs. This is in corrections, over budget for overtime. In corrections, we're building in 72,000. We're projecting that through the end of the year. Also in corrections, we are building in 23,000 into retirement expense. And I just want to talk just briefly about what that is, because it took us a little bit to figure out why are we having to build in retirement expense. We usually do better at that budgeting. So if you think about our two retirements, our defined contribution where the county puts in 7%, it's pretty easy to budget. You take a wage, you take 7%, that's your contribution. For defined benefit pension folks, it's that MERS valuation every year that tells us in 2 years, this is what you're going to pay us. We don't care what your actual experience is in 2 years. This is what you're going to pay us. So if you can think of when a pension, defined benefit pensioner leaves us, replaced by a defined contribution, that budget for that defined benefit payment won't change. But now you have to pay the 7% on your new hire. That's things that we don't anticipate that at budget time. So we're still paying that DB expense. The DB person left. Now we have to build in some for the new hires, right? So that's what's going on there. Worth conversation. More COVID expenditures and corrections to the tune of 8,600. We are covering a little bit of COVID and community development, about just over $400. Now we come to emergency management. So part of you'll see additional equipment of almost 29,000. That's the phone system for emergency management's portion of that. But you can see it's coming from a decrease in other expenses that department is not realizing, and a decrease in wages that they're also that were budgeted that they're realizing. So those essentially net out. Oh, we are getting close to the end. Just a few unreimbursed COVID expenses, some in Veterans Affairs, some for the Human Rights Committee. That was the speaker Mike, that they bought, I believe. Transfer out to law library. This was just Melissa Franquist, accountant, looking before end of fiscal year. How are our funds gonna, how are our funds gonna pan out? We can't end the fiscal year in a negative where we overspend budget if there's not enough fund balance in that fund to cover it. So this is just moving $2,000 more from general fund into law library, because they're gonna need a little more money to get them through the invoices for books for the rest of the year. That's general fund, all told in the end, $600,000 to the good. That's impressive, you guys. That's very impressive.
It's good news.
That's good news. Yeah. Long story short, good news.
I would like to thank Facilities Director Shoemaker for going after that lighting retrofit project a little earlier than we planned, but we're able to do it, and that'll save us money.
It'll pay us back.
Yeah.
And then save us money. Yeah, yeah. I think you'll see a contract coming from him pretty soon. Next round for those projects.
Okay, that will be on this afternoon, evening's agenda.
Number 8, consider approving fiscal year 2022 budget amendment number 2022-12, fourth quarter budget adjustments for other funds, and authorize board chair to sign the same.
A lot simpler, a lot shorter with these. We threw all the other funds on one adjustment. You can see from the line item and the line item description what fund we're talking about. Parks and Rec, we are just taking a whopping $60 of ARPA funds and covering their unreimbursed COVID. You see, so that's a in and out, right? And that's out. CPL fund is just needing to, just like the law library, we're just needing to build in a little more of use of their fund balance. So that's just increasing their expenditures and saying they're going to use their fund balance for that expenditure. Law library, you see that increase of $2,000 that's coming from general fund. Tribal fund balance, we're decreasing $111,000. And that's because we're using it. And down below, you'll see, we'll go through some of the places that are using that. Central dispatch fund balance, we're just decreasing almost $60,000. This is for the central dispatch portion of the new phone system. But they have that in their fund balance to be able to do that. So down below, we're mostly increasing expenses. Again, the parks COVID, the concealed pistol licensing fund expenses, law library books. Adult drug court is using 21,000 of their tribal monies for drug testing. Sheriff's office is using 130,000. That must be vehicle. Sheriff contract service. 130. Oh, thank you. K9 unit. Yes. And outfitting that. And then emergency management contract services of $60,000 tribal. That's for the rave system in the schools. So fantastic things happening there. The reason you see a reduction of $100,000 in tribal and admin is a budgeting function. We have to put that money somewhere. We don't know who's going to use it, but we have to build it in the budget. We usually build it into admin. So not like we're losing any money. It's just moving it in the budget. Central dispatch building rent was not budgeted for in the budget. We recognize that our agreement for that rent is expired. We are going to work towards that, but until we have a new one in place, we are status quo. So we are building that rent into central dispatch. We have it, I believe, built into the general fund revenue already. We just didn't have it built into expenditures out there. Covering some COVID expenditures at central dispatch. And again, that new phone system to the tune of 28,000 and a little bit in the MRF, well, $210 for some unreimbursed COVID there. Any questions on what's happening there?
Okay, with that being said, then we'll move that forward to tonight's meeting.
Very good. Thank you, gentlemen. And that completes the work of the Finance Administration Committee, and that brings us down to Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one item, and that is consider approving the request to hire Isabella County 911 dispatcher supervisor at the dispatch supervisor employee wage scale, step 5 years, in the amount of $55,249.45. And we have Mark Griffiths here with our director. And this is not the first time we've seen this type of agreement because of it's been so hard to find employees that if we find somebody with some experience, it will bump them up. This is an employee that Director Griffiths has knowledge of and knows of. So I guess if you want to comment any more on it, Director?
You've covered it exceptionally well. Again, just like you said, the recap, somebody we know would like to come back and work for us at a perspective. And the question is, can we start them at step 5? It's still a pay cut from where they're at, but they're interested in coming back to what we're doing. So hopefully that will be something we can accommodate and then proceed forward with the rest of the hiring process, background check, so on and so forth.
Do we have any questions?
Just a comment but to get an individual that you already know and have worked with and has all the training and certifications, that's a huge part of it as well. And as Commissioner Engler said, this is not unprecedented. We've done it in other areas for highly skilled, newly hired employees, started them at a little higher rate. So.
And as I said earlier, you look nice in a suit, so we expect that all the time now. No?
Duly noted.
So if there's no more questions, we'll move this forward to the business session tonight. Thank you, Director.
Very good.
And that completes the work of the Criminal Justice and County Affairs Committee, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Brings us down to Human Resources and Public Works Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our first item is consider approving the individual service contracts between Isabella County Commission on Aging and James Vandermeer, Carol Clute, Angela McGurk, Catherine Tobin, Judy Swartz, Steve Wood, and Mary Ossager to provide activity services, and Virginia Kane to serve as active living newspaper editor effective October 1st, 2022 through September 30th, 2023, and authorize the board chair to sign the same. So we have our Director of Commission on Aging, Jennifer, here today to give us the background on this. Hi,
Yes,
Jennifer.
absolutely. So we're excited. We have some really amazing individuals who choose to work with us every year. And so we're just requesting from you to renew these contracts. All of these individuals currently work with us and have worked with us for quite some time. So these are all of the fitness instructors and actually class instructors that we have through our activities program. Whether it's fitness, we also have our painting class that happens monthly, and then also our newspaper editor, who's a retired Commission on Aging employee who just does an amazing job with our 16-page paper that goes out to 3,500 plus people every month. So we would be very excited if you would be willing to help us renew these contracts to keep these programs going. They're very popular, our fitness classes. Since the pandemic, we actually have stopped charging. And if we're able to continue to do so, we are going to keep doing that for as long as we can so that we can encourage more individuals to take part in our classes that we do offer. And we have definitely seen the increase, and especially since the pandemic, once we were able to start going again, it's been great seeing the number of people that have been coming to the building and taking part in those programs.
Any questions or comments?
Very good. It's nice to see these same folks continue to want to provide these services for us.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And even the one, Judy Swartz was one of our Zumba instructors here, moved to Colorado. And I think I've said before, I think that's one of the positives that we did experience from the pandemic was the availability of Zoom. And so we're able to keep her as an instructor, providing the class through that platform for the individuals who just adore her. And so it's kind of a win-win for all of us.
We do pay these folks, but the pay is such that I don't think they're doing it for the money.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that me and my wife Ann have taken some of these classes and we really, really enjoyed them and they thought they were real impressive.
Good, I'm glad. Good.
Okay, if there's any more, if there is no more questions or comments, this will be on our agenda this evening. And
We have one other item.
Right.
Insurance Committee creation discussion. I'd like to ask Emma Neaport to maybe come up and give her expertise on this. We opened just discussion on the Insurance Committee creating a committee and take a look at all the different options that we have and who we might want to put on the board.
You didn't, I didn't notice it either. I believe.
Oh. Okay,
After all of that, it took a little too long at this point, I guess, but. Chairman, if you want to start.
I'll start us off. I think this is an idea that Administrator Frost and I have kicked around a little bit. We thought it'd be nice to have an employee insurance committee. We've got some big things coming up and I think to have the employees kind of sit and do some of the research and find out, what we can do. We have to keep providing good benefits at a reasonable cost somehow. So we're gonna have to be creative in doing that. We've talked about some big things. We're going self-funded for prescriptions and dental, correct? In the coming prescriptions. And we've talked about possibly self-funding for medical. We've talked about long-term disability, whether we need to make changes to that program. And these are all things that I think this committee can work on and make a recommendation to administration for them to act on. And then, of course, it'll come to this board. But I think it gives the employees some buy-in and it puts, whoever's on the committee, it puts a representative for what's going on with healthcare into the different areas that our employees are in. So I think it's going to be a good thing. I've asked Commissioner Marino if he would sit on that as Chair of Human Resources and Public Works. I think he should be on it. Also
to.
myself, I've had some experience with healthcare committees and in healthcare design in general. So I would also like to be on.
That's really where we've left the discussion. We've had a little bit of discussion about what should the makeup of the committee be. I know, we've talked a little bit about collective bargaining groups and their seat at the table. I talked about this group coming forward, this insurance committee with the department heads and elected officials last week. And really out of that conversation came, is the collective bargaining group really the appropriate basis for representation on this committee, right? Those groups have their venue for negotiating. Not that this is quote unquote a collective bargaining venue in this, but on my mic. Not on, sorry. I wondered what that, thank you, Michelle. Wasn't sure, I thought I have to eat dinner, what, okay, if my mic wasn't on. So we really need to discuss what the makeup should be. I think in my budget recommendation letter, I thought, oh, well, you need a representative from each group, but they have a venue for that. And they can certainly be a part of this. If you read the draft in front of you through discussion, Emma and I really, Emma did a lot of legwork on this. I want you to know, contacted other counties that have groups, insurance committees like this, talk to them about what's the makeup of your group, what works for you, why do you do it this way? So she really did a lot of that and found one county that says, well, here's the people, we just have it open to anybody who wants to make a meaningful contribution to the discussion, right? And at first we kind of set back on that, but then we thought if you are vested in this, if it's an important benefit to you to where you're going to research things and provide input to the group, then we wouldn't want to turn anyone away that had a desire to sit at that table. I do think we have a lot of champions of our benefits, and I think this is one way that those people come forward. So I don't know that we want to limit it, but I do think we need to settle on a structure, a foundation of these folks are the committee. These folks are going to form a recommendation, vote on a recommendation going forward, but anyone can participate. And we had, in this draft, we had said, oh, this kind of followed, if you look in the non-rep personnel policy, this almost follows exactly what the employee advisory committee that used to be here. Now, they didn't touch on insurance is my understanding, but in the past, in the non-rep policy, there is this language about the employee advisory committee. And in the past, this is how it was formed. So it talks about 2 employees in non-exempt positions, right? So these are going to be your hourly employees, right? 2 employees who are exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act. So those are going to be more of your management, your salaried employees. The county administrator controller, the Isabella County payroll and benefits administrator, that would be Emma Newport. 1 employee representing trial court. This is again in our policy about that employee advisory committee, and it kind of makes me think, well, do we have 1 representative from the sheriff's office? Because I know we've talked about there being a lot of groups out there. Sheriff is a co-employer, judges are, that co-employer, so that kind of makes sense. I think if you start going out to, 911 has the dispatch unit, right? And dispatch supervisors. That's a little different. Mark is not a co-employer like the electeds are. So there's really, a lot of different things. And the more we talk, does that need to be the basis of the representation? 1 chairman appointed commissioner. Chairman Hope has talked about appointing Commissioner Marino as the chair of the Human Resources and Public Works Committee, chairman of the Board of Commissioners. 1 representative of Isabella County's third-party administrator for health insurance. Currently, that's 44 North, but we do see the value of having that agency, whoever that is, sit in this committee for us. 1 Isabella County retiree. They do take our insurance, and they don't get a choice of what they get. Either they hear their choices, take it or don't. But they don't get any input in that process, certainly. So we think that would be good. And then again, any other full-time benefit eligible, meaning, you're getting health insurance benefits, Isabella County employee who wishes to make a meaningful contribution to the committee.
I just wanted to say, with that wide variety of representation from all the different situations that people find themselves, that's really good. And we know from things that are happening right now in the arena of healthcare, things change a lot. Like there was this thing about insulin, or just week to week, there's changes that happen real fast. So I'm sure that with this committee and with the, like I said, wide range of people on there, we can strive to keep current on the things that are changing that would affect the decisions and the plans we would like to come up with. So I think this is a real timely thing that we should have.
Commissioners, any other thoughts?
Just looking at the makeup, I haven't looked at the numbers real quick, but it looks like if no one other than the direct ones that you're representing, you've got 10 members. My hope is that we get at least 2 more full-time employees on there so that we have a makeup of 12 looking at it, I'd hate for there to be like 2 administrative people, 2 commissioners, and the 44 North who could be considered a block. I don't
Mhm.
think that we would work that way, but it could be viewed that way from the outside.
Mhm.
But,
Good point.
Appreciate that. Just from the discussion last week at department meeting, we have at least 2 champions who have called to say, I'll do it, I'll be on it, I'll help. So,
Great, great.
Commissioner Engler.
Yeah, do we have a certain timeline that we want to set some dates that we make sure this actually gets accomplished and move forward on there? Is there, sometimes these things can kind of wander on for a while, so it'd be kind of nice to put some deadlines on there so we make sure it happens.
My intention is to get your feedback on the makeup and then put this in a pretty little format like the petty cash policy, right? Just make it a policy. And so we'll put that in that format based on your feedback tonight. And we should have that in the next round, or at least hopefully in the next round. So I don't want it to say either. The whole gist of getting this conversation started is that probably now 11 months from now, we're going to have a decision about self-funded medical. This committee needs to already have asked the question. They already need to research and vet that and find out what is going to be best for the county and the employees moving forward together. And I guarantee we need to start now. Mhm. Mhm.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Couple of things I'll add. I think we've got some represented groups. I think we have to make clear that this is not contract negotiations. It's a healthcare committee, totally separate thing. Also, I'll just say that Ms. Newport has kind of taken this ball and ran with it and done some research already, and I think is excited about it. And our vision was to kind of have her run this committee. So that's the way I would like it to function. I think that makes sense.
Yeah.
Good.
That completes the.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have no intergovernmental affairs, no administrator controller issues, no unfinished business under new business. Item A. See, Commissioner Marino will pick on you, I guess. Would you present?
Item A is consider approving the Isabella County fiscal year 2023 budget resolution and general appropriations act resolution number 2022-05.
Very good. And just a couple things I'll say on this, and then I'm sure Ms. Frost wants to chime in maybe. But I like the 5-year capital improvement plan added to the budget this year, so we can kind of see long range, what we need to do there. Only 200,000 from the DTRF fund. This current year, we budgeted 800,000, but then didn't need to use any of it. Let's see, a little under 500,000 use of fund balance. We never like to have to use fund balance, but it still leaves us with a little over $11 million in fund balance, which is a very healthy fund balance. Projected revenues, you'll see dropped a little this year, I think, because last year was such an anomaly with the ARPA funds was the reason for that. Overall, it's a good budget. It represents a lot of work from Administrator Frost and from all of her staff and all of the department heads involved. So I thank everyone involved. Yeah. If you.
Yeah, before you
Commissioner
get
England.
started, I do appreciate Administrator Frost, how she's opened up the process and allowed the board participation to increase. I know it's really been a a welcoming change from how we've done it in the past. And we've had this conversation before, is that budgets are projections and assumptions, and usually you look back 2 or 3 years and you use those and everything's kind of normal, but last 2 years have not been normal. So a lot of our assumptions and projections have been a lot harder to assume, because hopefully now we'll get into some normalcy so we can understand some what is normal. But the last 2 years has not been normal because of COVID, and that made this budget process a lot harder to understand. So that's all.
I'll just mention maybe some of the more controversial things that came out because of the extended process. You know, we had time for feedback. I want to make clear that the budget resolution was amended to kind of define how a hiring freeze would be administered if the board would implement one, right? The board would have to take separate action to do that. So I just want to let everyone, you know, I just want to make sure everybody understands that. We did talk about in finance, drafting a hiring process policy, basically, so that, you know, we could define that, because there was a little angst about what does a hiring freeze mean. We all know there's certain positions we have to fill that can't be vacant. So we're looking to further define that. I think all I ever wanted really in that, and talked about it a little in the letter, was just not a knee-jerk reaction to filling a vacant position, but a thoughtful review. Because of the last couple of years, things have changed. We shouldn't be doing things the same way we've always done them, right? So just that pause and that review. Long-term disability is not being taken away from non-represented employees. We are renewing at a 2-year benefit, which falls in line with the long-term disability other groups get. And it is basically standard in the industry, 24 months versus 60. So we're still saving, I think, about $18,000 making that change alone. So it's moving in the right direction, and what's best for the county and the employees moving together. So also a little bit of buzz about that wage study that I recommended, and please know there's going to be a lot of discussion before we move forward in any of that direction, but we can't continue down the path we're on with our current study and sending those out for reclassification. So the reclassification requests that are on the books are important. They need to be addressed. And so we'll be seeking a process for that. Those are really I think the biggest things that stretching out that timeline allowed to come out and be discussed. I think it was Commissioner Horton, Chairman of Finance, that said, if you haven't given your comment by now, you know, you've had ample time on the budget. So, and thank you, department heads, electeds, accountants, for allowing the process to be moved up. I know that wasn't easy. Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments? Okay, we'll consider that this evening, and that will bring us down to item B. We have several 2% grant requests. First one would be for the Commission on Aging, requesting $522,348 for programs and services. And Director Crawford, you want to come up and speak to that? Sorry, I don't like to catch people off guard.
No.
So before you, our 2% request for this fall is the exact same 2% request that we did submit in the spring. That was a request from the tribe to the Commission on Aging many years ago. And so we do submit the exact same one, both spring and fall. Our total request is $522,348. Of that, we did receive $150,000 this spring. which is amazing. And since November 1995, the Commission on Aging has received over $9.6 million in 2% funding from the tribe. So we definitely are so fortunate to be the recipients of their generosity. Continue or hope to continue to be so. So this application also, it is done and worked on by our entire programs, all of the Commission on Aging programs, all the managers take part in this application. So it does stretch across all of our programs. All of the funds from the tribe are completely dedicated to our programs and services. Nothing is done in an administrative with the funds, and they are spent in the year we receive them. So we do make sure that we expend all of those funds in that year.
I'll just add, I think that we do a terrific job we're very thankful for the tribe for that money. I think we do a great job of turning that money into programs and services. We have a huge number of volunteers that donate their time, and we turn that into a lot of meals, a lot of case management, a lot of home care, just the whole myriad of services that the Commission on Aging does. Thank you. So we'll consider that tonight. The next one is Isabella Conservation District requesting $103,200 for the electronic waste recycling program. And Commissioner Engler, maybe you'd like to speak to that one.
Yeah, one of the other hats I have, I'm a member of the Isabella County Conservation District. This is not a new program we've had. We're continuing it. We always think that, well, the last one was so big that it'd be a little bit less likely to have it, but we still receive calls wanting to have more materials. This electronic waste does not belong in landfills, so there are certain chemicals and minerals in there that should not be into our supply. So it's very important. On a secondary note, I'm here is that we're still working on building our own facilities, and actually we're moving forward with that, but it's been taking some time to do that. So like I said, it's not a new program. It's been well attended by this county, and people from other counties bring their materials too. So, and part of that is because part of the money we were taking was from like sponsors like Hewlett Packard, which is not just the county, but so.
Thank you, Commissioner. The next one then would be Materials Recovery Facility requesting $150,000 for the recycling program.
Good afternoon. As you can see, we've done a little bit of change. Actually, this process started about 4 or 5 years ago. I changed as far as my request was concerned. I went from asking the request being a very specific that what we were asking for to we done it basically just a name change to ask for money for the recycling program. I was still asking for very specific items usually during all of that process. Still left the name the same as far as the recycling program is concerned, but we are looking to do some changes as far as $150,000 is what we're asking for, and 2% funding this year for just under the general operating for the recycling facility. So it can be used anywhere across the whole program itself, whether it's curbside recycling, whether it's roll-offs, the operation itself, whether it's in some funding for our household hazardous waste that we do, that we don't actually do a household hazardous collection, but we do a sharps program that we collect sharps all the way across the county. So that's all of this 150,000 could be used through the course of any of them programs. So.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Mhm.
Jake, where can you list some of the places where people can turn their sharps in?
It's almost every township office has a sharps drop off, whether it be Deerfield, the fire hall in Shepherd, Wise Township. I think there is 9 drop sites throughout the county as far as the Sharps program is concerned.
How about city?
Yes, we actually do the collection at the city the city Public Works building, as far as their fire and police department building. We do a collection there at that. They do a drug, the city themselves do a drug take back or a drop off at that location, but we do the Sharps pickup there.
Okay, thank you.
Dick. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Thank you. The next one then would be Parks and Recreation requesting $50,000 for the Herrick Park Playground project. Sue Ann. Take it away.
We are putting in or submitting a 2% grant for the Herrick Park Playground project. This park playground is located on the north side of the park. As you guys know, Herrick is cut in half by Herrick Road. North side has the playground and pavilions and swimming. And on the south side, there's camping, small playground, showers. So the playground that's on the north side has definitely a nice playground, but it really is over 20 some years old. And the specifications on a safe playground have been improved over the years or changed over the years. And we definitely need to meet those changes. I explained in committee that some of the, even like the bars that when you walk up the ramp and, go across like this little like bridge, the headspace, bars are just a little bit too far apart. So little kids could get their heads in between those bars. Some of our slides are, what they thought was a good idea was metal slides, and on a hot day, that's not a really good thing to have out there anymore. And some of the slides too, I did mention at the committee, but we've had to slice them down almost like a piece of salami because it's chip, so we keep cutting them down. So it's not that I could exaggerate, but I'm not going to. I mean, it's still a good slide, but we do cut them down and burn them so they kind of, I know we've made it work over the years. So we are asking the tribe for $50,000 for the project is going to be at an estimate of over $200,000. We have budgeted it our capital to, provide the remaining funds. And then we, of course, will look for, like we did with the erosion project, is hopefully be able to get some other funding so to offset our match a little bit. The tribe has been very good to us over the years as well. This playground in the park is definitely in Saginaw Chippewa Indian Reservation boundaries and is very much used by the tribal community along with the rest of Isabella County residents and the area. So we're hoping this is a good project and hope you guys look favorably on it. If you have any questions, I can answer them.
There's a type of project that if you go up there and look at that, it's overdue. I mean, it's one of those that will allow people to look at it, come in and enhance them young families and their kids. Wow.
I did mention the accessibility as well. We have sand right now, and that surfacing is not the best suited, especially it's not the right depth. You need it to have it be pretty deep, and we do not meet that specification. So we are looking at some of the part being like a poured area, which is very good for wheelchair accessibility or somebody that needs is on crutches or things like that. And then the rest would be under a 5-bar surfacing. So it's quite expensive, the poured surfacing. So it'll depend on what those costs are. So.
Commissioner Engler.
Yeah, and I have to admit that the last couple of years, our parks have really been well used. I think a lot of people during the last 2 years of the COVID have kind of got introduced to our park system. So they've been well, the attendance has been really improved, so.
Yes, I should mention that. Yeah, Herrick definitely had, last 2 years have been banner years for this park. And Commissioner Engler is hitting it. I mean, we've had some. I like that we've introduced people to the parks that just never used them before, because it's been a great recreational experience that people may not have used over the years. So. And it also meets our 20-year plan, as the Parks Commissioners know. We've got a big list that in our 20-year plan that we have done. So it's just kind of trying to get these done as best we can. But we're glad to have the opportunity to submit this to the tribe.
Thank you, Sue Ann. All right, that brings us down to the fifth item, which would be Sheriff's Office requesting $280,198.50 for law enforcement data interoperability. And that was a new word for me. So,
Hello. All right, so this project touches like every law enforcement agency in the county. It touches the dispatch center, it touches the prosecutor's office. So the goal behind this is, we transitioned off from a shared records management system a few years ago. It just wasn't keeping up with what we needed to do. The service wasn't that good. So the other agencies stayed on it for a little while. They are now looking to transition into the system we have. Dispatch has been working on a new CAD system because they have the same vendor. This vendor is kind of completely transitioning off from the software that we've had for years. So everybody's kind of forced hand to move a little bit. The CAD system that the dispatch is looking at is a sister product to the RMS that we have, which is a sister product to the jail tracker system that we have in the jail, and has already been tested in Kent County and pushes out information into the prosecutor's office. So it's kind of cradle to grave for us. So the dispatch can bring in the incident, all the information, it gets transferred right to our systems automatically. We do our stuff and it transfers right into David's stuff at the prosecutor's office. So we're hoping to cut down on a little work, make sure our information is accurate, and so forth. The agencies that won't be changing would be the tribal police and the state police. They're staying on their systems. Tribal police have talked about it a little bit, so there might be some avenue down the road, but they will share the CAD interface in the car. So currently every patrol car has a CAD interface, so they will get that interface as well. So it really does touch every law enforcement officer that works in our county. And we're looking for clean, good data. Like currently, our folks enter in the roads. So we get these overlapping, and sometimes we have to merge the roads because they've got them, it's street and it's road, it's, ST versus STREET and that kind of thing. So when this comes to play, Mark's data will come from GIS from Tim Newport's office. So it'll be clean right to our system. So that'll stop. So we were pretty excited about the whole process and having it in place. The agencies that are the heavy hitters are the city and CMU, because they'd be switching over RMS. They are throwing in about $30,000, they are throwing in $30,000 a piece. Mark had some money that was allocated in this fiscal year budget coming up. So he's asking to match that at $150,000. So when we were done and said, it was really a $500,000 grant. We had about a 50% match. So that's pretty awesome to come up with that kind of money towards it. So we're hoping they'll look at that favorably and we can get some really good data and speed up the process and so forth. So all the agencies did provide a letter of support that should be in the packet. I originally missed it and I think we got it updated, but there should be a letter of support in there. The only thing that we would have to do, if we were awarded, we'd want to do a minimum of understanding to make sure that those agencies were going to, support their match, which I'm sure they would.
sounds like a great plan.
We hope so.
Any questions? The sheriff, thank you, Sheriff.
You.
Appreciate it. All right, so we will consider and rank each of those items between meetings. Nicole will pass that out and we'll get it back to her before the regular session. You can rank each of those items 1 through 4. So each particular item can be anything from a 1 to a 4. You can rank them all ones, you can rank them as, I guess is what I'm trying to get across.
Perfect.
Yep,
1 is the highest and 4 is.
yes.
I'll
Yes.
say that on the paper too, so I'll pass those out after.
Okay.
You could pass them out now if you want to, yeah. And while we're doing that, we're down to general public comment. Is there anyone for general public comment?
Connie Lee Bills, Union Township. I just wanted to mention that really excited to. Sorry. Really excited about that Herrick Park project. That's exciting. And I just wanted to mention, since you guys are bringing that up, that we are going to be looking for a grant from Priority Health, a small grant to help us get a huge pre-designed, it's like a national freedom playground thing or something for Jameson Park. And that's going to be a $215,000 project. And that's going to have a lot of equipment. So anyway, that's all I wanted to mention. And
Nice,
thank you very much.
thank you. Any other general public comment? Okay, seeing none, commissioners, any announcements? Commissioner Engler.
Yeah, I'm gonna bring this up again. I brought this up a couple other times as I was at Deerfield Township. And it has to do with the upcoming tax tribunal and the Dollar General. And I think it's a little more serious and I think some people are putting it on. I know the discussion last night was that it's going to cost the townships more money than they'll ever receive back in tax revenue from this. I think they're going after the smaller venues to set a precedent on this. The townships received the least amount of millage from them. What it'll affect is the county and schools quite a bit. And yeah, I don't know where this will go. I wish that, if I don't plant a crop on my property, I'm not going to be able to say that I don't have my property tax reduced because of the income level on that is not going to happen. So, and you could actually start going down to all the businesses. I think the city should be a little bit concerned about it too, because with the big box stores where it started at, now you're talking smaller. So I'm going to bring it up again. Like I said, they haven't decided. They've been trying to get a group together with the other townships and actually starting to look in other counties because it's just going to be so expensive to go to the tax tribunal to litigate that. And like I said, they'll never make it up in the small amount of revenue because it's only going to be, and their shares might only be, $50, $60, a year tax revenue to them. So, but the bigger picture, it's one of those things where do you stand up for what's right on there? Or do you be financially responsible because you really can't afford to go in there? So, I'll try to keep you updated on. I know they haven't made their mind up yet. They haven't found if they want to do it yet, but I think it's something that people should be aware of because I think it's going to have maybe long-term effects on our tax system so that's all I have. I said, I wish I had some better answers for you than that, but we'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah.
We were talking at the meeting, and I asked Mark, and he had not received anything from Dollar General.
Yeah, it seems like they're just going at a few smaller You know, like Broomfield is part, there's one in there and it's not. Doesn't seem to be the larger ones that have the ability to fight back with it, so. And then once you have a tax tribunal, president on there, then they can use that to go over larger ones, so that's the concern, so.
Is concerning. I appreciate that.
Yep.
Any other announcements? I just have one. I still have some raffle tickets to benefit the Isabella County Restoration House. They're $20 a piece and you could win $2,000 possibly. So if you want any of those, see me after the meeting or before the regular session or after. And if there's no other announcements, we will move on to closed session. We need a motion to go into closed session, Commissioner Engler.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we enter into closed session for
Sup-
negotiations.
Support Sweeney.
And moved and supported. All those in favor say aye, or do we need a roll call for that? We do. Okay.
Commissioner Swaney,
Yes.
Commissioner Hutchinson,
Yes.
Commissioner Engler,
Yes.
Commissioner Marino,
Yes.
Commissioner Hope.
Yes,
5 ayes, 0 nays. Motion passed, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, Clerk Luck.
think you guys have. Doesn't say leave on your phone.
Well, break out.
Oh, we were, yeah.
Yeah, it's go with the bottom and it'll pop up.
Thanks, Michelle. Not here, but. It confused me because it was. Leave the whole meeting. Oh, yeah, that's, if you leave the meeting, you can just come back. Okay. You have a like that, maybe.
See the box on. If you, there's a box right there,
Right there.
the blue one right there. If it's red, don't touch it. Oh.
Oh, yeah, you're coming. Oh, yeah.
Okay. Are we all back? Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion to adjourn.
Support, Marino.
Supported, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 5:49.